We are back, baby. Welcome to another Sunday podcast of the No Ceilings Pod. It is a tradition unlike any other. It is Masters Weekend, and we have our own tradition where we hop on the microphone and talk about personal development, self-growth, leveling up, and understanding that our own self-fulfilling prophecies can become a thing, and we don't have to be held back by our limiting beliefs. That's what this podcast is all about. You are listening to No Ceilings Pod. I'm your host, Corey, and I'm excited to get into it this week. This week, I'm talking to my old self, and I do that a lot. And I'm also talking to you. This week is titled, Replace Your Complacency with Consistency. Replace your complacency with consistency. So this is for anybody who is going through a period or a season or a long-term range of time in which you're experiencing complacency. If you're experiencing a good enough type of mindset, a could be worse type of mindset, you are living in the middle. Complacency, if I were to describe complacency in terms of just a person and their mindset and what they do on a day-to-day actions, is they have a low ceiling and a middle floor. So people always talk about people with a high ceiling. That means you have a lot of potential. And a low floor would be someone who's that's where you're currently sitting. I would say you're sitting in the middle. You have a middle floor, but you have a very low ceiling. You experience very small ups to be followed up by very small downs. And you end up just living in the middle. And what you say to yourself sometimes when you're in this state of complacency is, you know what, it could be worse. Things could be a lot worse. And it's great to be thankful, and it's great to be proud of where you have come from, especially if you've come from humble beginnings and now you're in a position where you maybe are in the middle, but you're only given one life. And again, the podcast is breaking through that ceiling and understanding that having a low ceiling like that is just going to keep you on a track of continuing to be complacent and continue to experience small highs, experience low lows. And when I say it out loud like that, you may be saying to yourself, that sounds like just a death march, where, we have like conversations about the weather and we have these small type of things and events that happen and we go to dinner and then it's all over. We don't want that. I don't want that. Things could be worse, but things could be a whole heck of a lot better. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Replacing your complacency and replacing it with consistency, which is the key to breakthrough. So when we talk about complacency, and I put a lot of thought to this because there was a point in which I was extremely complacent in my career, extremely complacent with my family life, and I was basically in a zone in which I would say to myself, I could play this out the rest of my life and be perfectly content with the results. And perfectly content is no longer something that I'm satisfied with. I want to be extremely joyful. I want to live a life of abundance. I want to break through some of the things that I believe can be broken through now. And that just is a leveling up type of mentality and an abundance type of mentality. So when you think about, man, if I'm in a complacent zone, like, am I there? Am I a part of a plateau right now? It's really difficult to break through because it's cozy, it's comfy, it's what you know, it's what you've known your whole life. It might be the people around you, your relationships. It might just be that's also what they're doing, and you're just kind of a product of your environment. And the reality is, and doing some self-reflecting, you're not uncomfortable enough to need to change when you're in the middle. You're never to a point in which you're going to hit rock bottom. It's not going to happen. You have a middle floor. You're not going to bust through that middle floor. It's scary having to free fall from the middle all the way to rock bottom. It's a long way to go, and going up past also seems like a lot of work, and things could be worse. So you end up staying in the middle because you don't need to change. That's the reality. But again, at the top of the podcast, do we want to just march our way through the middle with small ups and small downs to look back on things and say, that was pretty good, pretty pretty good. No, we want it to be great. We want it to be amazing. That's what you have the opportunity to do every single day that you wake up, and you should be thankful, but you should take your thankfulness and compound it into something even better. So just because you don't need to change, and just because it would be more of a want, doesn't mean that you shouldn't absolutely, with vigor and passion and energy, work to better the situation. And sometimes it means taking risks and looking at the fact that you have a middle floor and saying, you know what, I might dip below that. But again, living and going past and giving yourself a higher ceiling is a whole heck of a lot more. And hopefully you agree with me. Now, complacency is essentially a plateau, in my opinion, because in order to get to the point in which you're complacent, you had to have worked to get to that point, right? You don't just start out complacent. You don't just start out satisfied with where you're at. You work and you work your way up, and you are green arrows and you're progressing, right? And our lives just naturally have these things that we work through, right? Like you have school, which you graduate from. You get out of middle school, you go through the ranks, right? Elementary, middle, high school, you're learning, you're experiencing, you're building relationships, you're going up, 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 up. Then you go to college, whole new world. You get to experience some independence. You get to experience early adulthood, up, 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 up. You're constantly going up. You're constantly progressing. You're moving on to the next stage. And then you enter the real world. Maybe you get your first job, even more independence, even more early adulthood, even more relationships. You're going up, up, up. And then at some point, it all kind of just levels out into the middle. You know what I'm talking about. You have your salary or your hourly wage. Sometimes you get the bonus. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you'll go to a nice restaurant. Sometimes you don't. You go through these seasons of small ups and small downs, but now you're complacent and you're on a plateau. And in working out, especially, the way in which you get to a plateau is just hours and hours of being in the gym and going up, up, up. And then you eventually hit that plateau. And then you kind of flatline. You hang out in the middle. The way to get out of those things is to switch things up. You switch up the workout. You switch up the routine. You switch up the nutrition. And then you're back to going up and up, 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 up. But when you're living in the complacency and in the middle, you end up not switching things up. You end up staying stuck in that middle ups, middle downs, and just every year kind of blends in after another. And the key here is to break out of that. So if I want to break out of the plateaus, we're going to dive into it. But this is also a timely podcast because, I'm even going through some complacency right now. I just left a March Madness competition in which me and my team worked extremely hard. Long days, 12, 14-hour days, high stress environment, having to put up points in our competition. We won it last year, and then we got booted this year in the Elite Eight. And then the day after you get booted, you get a small depression. And then ever since then, and we're like 2 weeks away from that competition, you just fall into like this weird complacency pit because you don't have that huge goal that you were striding towards anymore. That's now over. So now you have to find a new thing, but nothing's going to be as great as that old thing. And it's similar to us driving up the ranks of being in school, right? Like you always look forward to moving on to middle school. And then you're like, man, I can't wait till I get to high school. I get my license. And you're like, man, I can't wait to go to college. Those are the best years of our lives. And you're like, man, I can't wait to get my first career. That's going to be incredible. And then you get in it, and then maybe a year or two passes, and then there's like nothing else. There's no extra thing because you don't create the thing because there's not a need for there to be another thing for you to strive for, right? It could be worse. You made it through those things. I think that's how people get into that middle ground. But even more so in April, when we start out the year, I love the beginning of the year because everybody makes their New Year's resolutions. Everybody is in that mindset of this year is my year. I want to grow. I want to make this the best year ever. You're just in that zone, right? I want to eat more healthy this year. I'm going to build more relationships. I'm going to take more chances. And then you go January, February, March. The world hits you in the face. Things happen. And then you get into springtime. And what do you know? You're gravitating back towards the mean. You're doing the same things that you did last year. The goals that you said you wanted to do this year, you're getting reminded of them. You're like, I don't even remember saying that. And it was only 3 months ago. I had one-on-ones with some of my teammates this week, and every quarter we go over their annual goals of like, hey, I want to do this year because I'm trying to help them combat complacency and to shoo away living in the middle. And we were just going over their goals because quarter one just ended 25% way through the year, and none of us had hit all of our goals, which it's still very, very early, so we're not expecting to hit our goals. But some of my teammates were surprised that they wrote that down. Some of my teammates are like way off of what they said they're going to do. Some of my teammates are realizing, crap, I am like right back into my old habits of what I said I wasn't going to do. So it's a good check, a good health check on where you're at. But that's what happens in April. And then summer comes, you get super busy. Like, you get what I'm coming from, right? You get on the hamster wheel and you always gravitate back towards like what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. And the idea is that's complacency and living in the middle. We want to break through that. We want to avoid that. So how do we do it? How do we do that? Like anything, you need to acknowledge. You need to take a step back, do some introspection, put some deep, deep thought on where you are at in your life, and acknowledge if you're being complacent or if you're in the middle of a plateau. A plateau could be a week-long plateau, like I've been experiencing, 2 weeks. A plateau could be a year-long plateau. A plateau could be a 10-year existence in which you're realizing, holy crap, I've been living in a plateau. Nothing's changed for the longest. Like I'm eating the same dinner. I'm eating the same meals. I'm hanging out with the same people. I'm making the same money. I'm dealing with the same problems that I was dealing with before. And that's what plateauing is. So first you got to take a step back and you have to acknowledge. And you have to say to yourself, where am I at and where do I want to go? Now you can acknowledge a lot of different things. And one of the things that you can acknowledge is your marriage. So do you take your marriage for granted? Are you in a spot where you are continuously doing the same thing, having the same conversations, having the same date nights, or are you actively working on leveling up your marriage? You can also do that with your health, right? Are you continuously saying that you're going to commit to going to the gym and then continuously coming up with excuses of why it's not going to happen? Or are you breaking through some of those plateaus? And when you see people, are they saying, man, you look great. What have you been doing? Think about that, right? Your wealth. You have to acknowledge, am I on this path of paying bills and getting paid and living one paycheck to another paycheck, to one small win, to one small setback? And am I just like waiting to retire when I turn 75 years old? Or am I actively pursuing more wealth in my life? Am I actively pursuing ways in which I can increase and insulate the amount of money I have in my bank account so I can live a more fruitful and joyful life? And lastly, spirituality. Do you make time for it at all? Is it something that you commit to at all? You go to church? Do you take long walks and do some meditation? Do you expand your horizons as far as like things that are out there? Or are you just doing the same things, having the same thoughts that you've been having ever since that plateau started? So you have to take a step back and you have to identify, am I being complacent? Am I in a plateau of life right now? Now, the best way to do that, from what I've found, is to change your environment. So, hey, Corey, I want to sit down and I want to really take stock. I want to take ownership of where I'm at. Like, I feel like I'm on a plateau. I feel like I'm being complacent. The way in which you can start to identify these things is, number one, change your environment. Switch things up. Get out of your current day-to-day. Get things out of your bedroom. Get out of your home office. Get out of your backyard. Like, go somewhere else. Go on a hiking trail. Go to a different city that you haven't been to before. Go rent out an Airbnb that's like pretty dang cool, that will just like get you in a great headspace, because it's hard to put yourself into a zone of something different if you're in the environment of something the same. So change the environment. Then you want to remove all distractions. So we're trying to look deep. We're trying to look internal. You can't be having your email or your text messages or your Instagram on your phone. Like, go dark for a couple of hours, maybe a whole day. So you're going to remove distractions. You're going to clear your head, clear your mind, make sure that it's open and clear for your intention on getting out of the plateau and where you want to go. And then once you do that, you need to visualize. You need to be able to see it. You need to be able to see it in a deep way. So you're going to identify, like, what do I want? What am I missing? What do I not currently have? And where do I want to go? And what does that look like when I eventually get there? Visualizing, I mean, there's tons of methods to visualize, but there's tons of stats to back it up of the effectiveness of visualizing, what some of the top performers do when it comes to visualize. So such an important component. And then last but not least, when it comes to moving yourself out of a plateau, is to think with the end in mind, right? Where do I want to go? What is the end product? Where am I so abundant and so joyful and so happy with myself, and I'll give myself such a pat on the back and such a high five because I did the work to get there? What does that look like? Specifically, what does that look like? How is that measurable? How can I get to that point? Like, what does that world look like for me? And then you work your way backwards, right? Like, if it means living on the beach and being able to have a dog with your family in a place that you and your family go every single year, and it's on the beach, it's a beautiful house, it's what you pictured, you have an abundant lifestyle, like that's the end product of where you want to be. Like, what are the steps that it takes in order for you to get there? But think with the end in mind, work your way back and work your butt off to get out of that complacency window. And complacency can happen on all levels. There are people who are wildly successful that are probably in a complacent standpoint right now that you may think to yourself, like, who cares? Who cares if they're complacent, if they have like a ton of money or a ton of wealth or they're in a good position? It's because you always need a meaningful pursuit in order to chase, or else you end up staying stuck. And if you're stuck, you're either growing or you're dying, as the old adage says. So everybody needs this. You don't want to stay in a plateau for too long. Now you can relax and you can chill. You can enjoy and smell the flowers. You can be thankful. All those things are great, but you can't do it for a whole lifetime, because what you end up finding is you'll be very unfulfilled by the end of that lifetime. It might be nice for a month or 2 months. It's just not how I'm wired personally. I'm always going to be striding and stretching for that next thing. Now, when it comes to the name of the podcast, right? Replace your complacency with consistency. This is the final key. Consistency is that final key in which you can show up and burst through that plateau that you've been stuck in for so long. Now, a great book to read, and millions have read it, so you may have already read it, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, this is specifically thinking in the vein of being consistent. He has the law of incremental success, which is essentially the concept of compounding 1% improvements daily. Every single day, get 1% better. I know you've heard that, but the law of incremental success goes hand in hand with being more consistent. If you can't do it forever, then it's not sustainable. I think specifically of diets when it comes to the law of incremental success. I think there's a lot of people that would like to improve their diets, and they look at it and they say, I want to lose a couple pounds. I want to be healthier. There's multiple reasons why you want to change up your diet a little bit. And what happens is you totally overhaul what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. You do one of those fad diets, or you do a cleanse, or you do something that is like totally off the norm of what you currently do. And what happens? You enter the honeymoon stage, and then it gets a little bit difficult, and then you can't be as consistent with it, and then you fall off completely, and you're right back to the health or the weight that you didn't want to be in. And it's because it's not sustainable when you totally overhaul like that. So the law of incremental success means just introducing one new thing per week, like taking baby steps to get to the eventual goal, because it's sustainable that way and you can be very consistent with it. Now, another thing to consider when it comes to the law of incremental success and being consistent is you have to avoid the 0% days. So in compounding in general, 0 doesn't compound against anything. 1 can be compounding, 2 can be compounding, 3 can be compounding, but if you have a 0 day, that's not going to compound against anything. You're going to stay stuck, or you're going to work your way backwards. The whole concept of compounding is that it's building on something. So I think we get in our heads, me included, of whenever we're trying to take on a challenge or get out of a plateau, where we're going to have an off day. You're definitely going to have an off day. Something is going to happen that was unforeseen. You're going to get sick. You're not going to physically feel it that day. You're going to get something dropped on your calendar unexpected. And you're going to say to yourself, well, obviously I can't do that today. I have to take an off day. I have to have a 0 day. I'm not going to be able to commit to that today. So we'll get back in it tomorrow. But the problem is that totally halts and stops your compounding. So it's okay if it's not a banner day. It's okay if you're not setting a record every single week. Like, that's also not sustainable. But when it comes to whatever it is that you're striding towards and whatever you're trying to get out of or improve, you can't have a 0 day. You got to turn that 0 day into a 1 day. So let's take physical health, for example. Like, I'm really trying to lose weight, or I'm really trying to become more physically healthy. Let's say you get sick. It's like, okay, I'm going to skip the gym. Not feeling good at all. And then you just lay in bed all day. That's a 0 day compared to a 1 day, which would be, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. You may say to yourself, like, Corey, a 10-minute walk, that's not going to do anything. It is. It's compounding on the other work that you already put in before that point. So avoid a 0 day, go for a 10-minute walk. As silly as that might sound, you might be on your death march, got a fever, your nose is stuffy, but a 10-minute walk outside allows you to keep your compounding going and getting 1% better every single day. Think about your marriage. I think I talk about marriage a lot, right? You can't have a 0 day. You can't have a day where you're like, I've been good for the last month. I'm just going to, you know what? I'm cutting corners. I'm not doing my responsibilities around the house. I'm going to get in a giant fight with my wife because I'm upset. I'm just having a bad day right now. Whose day can I ruin? My wife's. You can't have a day like that. You can have bad days, though. Like, it's hard, right? You can be in a bad mindset, but you can't have a 0 day with your marriage. So instead of doing that, you can just say, hey, I need a day. I'm really leaning on you because, you know, it rarely happens to me, but today I'm absolutely having a crappy day. I'm happy to take the kids out of your hair for 30 minutes. And after that, I'm going to need to lean on you a little bit. But that's much better than just biting the bullet, having a 0 day, being a crappy husband or being a crappy wife, and just be like, those days happen. I can't be perfect. No one's asking you to be perfect here. We're just asking you to be not have a 0 day, not totally throw it in the wood chipper and say, yeah, I'm going to burn this day. Like, you can still attain a 1. 1 is not too much to ask for. Spend 15 minutes with your time with your kids and let your wife go get a Starbucks coffee just so she has that extra piece because she knows she's going to need it to be able to help you out. Like, whatever it is, just don't have a 0 day. Avoid the 0 days. Now, the beauty of consistency, I'm going to sell you on consistency, is it allows you to accurately forecast the future. So conversely, if you're inconsistent and you have a lot of starts and a lot of stops and a lot of different directions in which you're going in, it's really difficult to forecast what the future looks like. And when you can't forecast the future and we don't have that vision like that, it really can kill a lot of your momentum. Like, I don't know where I'm going to be a month from now, let alone a year from now. How am I supposed to visualize? How am I supposed to forecast? How am I supposed to build up to that? It's really, really difficult. So consistency, when you get on that consistent track and you're building and things are growing and you have the law of incremental success at your back, it's really awesome to be able to project out the future. Hey, if I put away $250 a month every single month in this account that has a 4% return on it, after 10 years, it's going to be here. And when it's there, we can buy a home with it, or we can renovate X, Y, and Z, or we can invest it further and we can try to retire by this age, as opposed to burn through cash, crazy risk, not a lot to show for it, no real direction. It's you can't make those plans. You can't make those future plans. And when you can't make those future plans, when you can't build and when you can't forecast, it's kind of a momentum killer. And then you're relying on luck. And then you're hoping things like kind of break your way. So like, you want to be able to sit down. You want to be able to build a sturdy base so you can build up from there. But you can't do it if you don't have consistency. And you can't do it if you can't rely on yourself, because then you're just lying to yourself. Hey, we can do X, Y, and Z in 5 years. But you know the last 5 things that you started, you stopped because you're not consistent. And when you know you're lying to yourself, you're just not going to commit to it as hard. So consistency is a beautiful thing because it allows you to forecast the future. And the other reason why I love consistency is because it's the father of skill development. So I'm in sales. I was never in sales before this. So this is my 14th year of being a sales leader. And coming into the industry, I didn't even understand the concept of sales. I didn't even understand that there was influence and persuasion and guidance that you could give somebody to eventually lead to a deal for yourself. I was aware of like car salesmen's, I think, for the most part, but I wasn't aware that of like exactly how it worked. I just didn't know how the world worked. So going into it very naive, big black box to me, no freaking clue. And when I came up in the industry, I worked for a company that gave us a lot of opportunities. They bought a lot of leads, and it was a conversion game and it was an effort game. And the beautiful thing of doing that is I didn't know anything, but I consistently would take phone call after phone call after phone call after phone call, just so many calls every single day for my first 2 years of my career, just hustling. And when you take that many phone calls, you start to realize what works and what doesn't work, what people respond to, what people don't respond to. And that is basically what skill development is. It's like all of those reps and the consistency of you being in those reps and taking note of what is working and what isn't working. That's how you build skill. So same thing in life, and same thing with the consistency that you do on a day in, day out basis. If you're being consistent and you're showing up every single day and doing the thing, whatever that thing is, you're going to find stuff that works. You're going to find better ways to do it. You're going to find ways to improve and ways to enhance. You're also going to find stuff that definitely doesn't work for you, and you'll be able to X those out. And it's just going to be continuous iteration to the point where you will be an absolute expert, an absolute pro, a person that's living in abundance, a person that's living in joy, because you had all of the reps to eventually get there. Consistency is a beautiful thing. So if consistency is so beautiful, why aren't people more consistent? I know that you've been consistent through something, and when you went through that thing, you were really happy on the other end. Like, we go through these seasons of being really consistent, so we know it, we have experienced it, everybody has. But why aren't people more consistent? Number one, consistency is boring. It is. Doing 1% better every single day is not sexy at all. When you see Rocky and you see the Rocky cutscenes, when he's just going off in the gym and he's carrying a log over his shoulders in Russia and he's training hard for the big match, and it's just like a compilation of a video and awesome music for 5 minutes, that's what we want. That's what we want life to be like. We want to be able to make the decision, snap our fingers, work really hard for a couple minutes, and then boom, we got the thing. But that's not how it works, unfortunately. So what happens is we get really enthusiastic about something, we live in the honeymoon phase, and then we get some adversity or we get bored, and then we fall off. And then you're listening to this podcast about consistency. So it's boring. Acknowledging that it's boring and acknowledging that it is the way to get to where you want to be is a great way to do it. And embrace the boring, embrace the suck, enjoy it. Start to program yourself to want to enjoy the boringness because you know it gets you to where you want to be. Number two is there's way too many damn distractions. You got social media, you got TV, you got products, you got companies. We got billion-dollar companies that have just so much research on us, and they know what gets us hooked. So when we're living in 2026 and we have all of these distractions, a lot of these distractions are just from companies that are looking to gain our attention. It's like, man, we are in a battle that we are not prepared to fight. So just acknowledging that there's too many damn distractions will get you off consistency real quick. It's really easy to just get distracted by a shiny object and move on. Another reason why consistency is not very prevalent in a lot of folks is comparison. So comparison happens on a lot of levels. You know, if your brother and sister, my kids, they'll compare themselves to each other. We adults compare ourselves to each other on social media, to our kids' schools, like the parents that go to our kids' schools. We compare ourselves to our family. We compare ourselves to the people at work. It's just comparison and jealousy and so much comparison that's out there. Now, you know, when you're in a state of comparing yourself to another person, you don't think to yourself, I'm going to put 100 hours in of doing this really boring thing because I know that's where I'm going to eventually get. No, you look for quick fixes. You say, they don't do that. Like, why them? Why not me? They're lucky, I'm unlucky. It's just too much comparison, and we can't comprehend and get out of that zone of comparing, and we get into this pocket of not wanting to be more consistent. We're looking for more quick fixes because of comparison. Fatigue. So, consistency is hard. Even if you're getting 1% better every single day, that is a big mental fatigue on yourself. You're trying to get out of this plateau, but a plateau is comfy. A plateau conserves energy, and a plateau is familiar. So you want to stay there. Like, your body naturally gravitates towards that. And you can get a fatigue over time of constantly pushing the limits and getting yourself to the next level. So it's tiring. Life is tiring on its own. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. So it takes more energy to be consistent. Sometimes you just want to have a 0 day. And I get that. I've been there. And then the last reason why people are not consistent, and I'm telling you the reason why people are not consistent so you can try to avoid these things and acknowledge it, is easy, fast, and cheap will always be better in our heads than hard, slow, and expensive. Easy, fast, and cheap is better than hard, slow, and expensive. And the thing about it is these companies have figured that out. And that's why they're so good at selling products to us. And that's why money comes flying out of your account and you don't even remember buying the thing. Is because they appeal to those senses. So we want it to be easy. We want it to be here right now and fast. And we want it to be cheap. That's why Amazon's so great. Easy, fast, and cheap. If it's hard, if it's slow, and if it's expensive, why the heck would I want that? I want easy, fast, and cheap. So going back to, physical health, right? Something that has been all over the place is Ozempic, right? Why would I put in hours and hours and hours in the gym? Why would I put myself through vigorous workouts in which I'm sweating and it's hard and my muscles are sore and I have to wake up early? It just doesn't feel good. And why would I sign up for the membership, buy all the gym stuff? Why would I do all of that when it's so hard, it's so slow, such a process, and it's so expensive compared to just taking Ozempic, and then I can get the body that I want and I can shed some pounds. It's not that expensive, and maybe I can get it prescribed. Like, people are choosing that over going to the gym. And the reason why you choose going to the gym is because it's much better for you. And you learn so much more along the way of that journey rather than just the quick fix. Because when you get the quick fix, as soon as you get off the stuff, you're going to go right back to the old body that you had. I mean, there's a million examples of that, but gravitate towards the hard, the slow, and the expensive. Even though everything in your body is telling you not to, and even though the world is telling you not to, that's where the wins are. That's where the incremental gains are. That's where the consistency lives. And that's how you get out of plateaus. If you're constantly looking for quick fixes and you put a Band-Aid on the solution of trying to get out of a plateau, you're going to stay there for a long period of time. And you're going to say things like, I'm trying. But you're trying the wrong way. You should be trying by doubling down and getting more consistent. Now, I haven't always been a consistent individual. It's not something that's necessarily been on my radar my whole life. So just diving back into old Corey was a good student. He was definitely a good student in elementary school and middle school. And then social life started to take off a little bit. And in high school, started to veer off the path of academics, let's say. So freshman and sophomore year were fine. But junior and senior year of high school, I definitely spent more time socializing than I did putting my head in a book. And I didn't flunk. I wasn't like such a bad student. Like, we still graduated. We still made a respectable showing, let's say. We got the diploma. But I wasn't necessarily moving into a grade A, model A student like I was before. And when I went to college, I got the opportunity to run track in college my freshman year. And I was enjoying the social life in college, and I was running track every single morning. And then I would have track meets on the weekend, but still try to social life. And then I would just kind of go to school when it was convenient for me. And sometimes I'd have to miss Friday classes because too much social life on Thursday, if you know what I mean. And it just was, that's the track that I was on. And that's where my priorities were. It was track and it was socializing, and then school would fit its way in there. I knew I had to go to school. I wasn't like totally blowing it off. But anywho, I tell you this story because I wasn't very consistent with school. And I remember very vividly, and I've told this story to her before. My mom came and picked me up from college, and we were driving back for winter break, I believe it was. Or actually, we were driving back after freshman year. And she had my grades at that point. And my grades, I was hovering in the 2.0 GPA range. And if you're familiar, you can't live in the 2.0 GPA range for too long and continue to go to college. So she explained that to me. She said, Corey, if you continue on the track that you're on right now, you're not going to be able to go here anymore. And I should have known that, but I didn't know that. And for some reason, that was like very shocking to me because I've never really been in that position before where someone was going to take something away from me that was like my own doing. So I just kind of remember sitting with that and thinking to myself, like, wow, you really like let this slide to a point which it shouldn't be. So I needed to get more consistent with school. So what ended up happening is I did cut out track. So I ended up quitting the track team. Didn't love track in the first place. So it wasn't that hard of a decision, but I knew that that was taken away from my consistency of school. And then I'd like to say that I cut out the socializing, but I didn't. I still was socializing a lot. I had a lot of fun in college, but I definitely cut out track, which is great. But really the big part of the story when it has to do with consistency is not me partying in college. It has to do with a psychology class that I had. So in psychology, we learned about this concept of your environment and putting yourselves in environments where your body just gravitates and understands and knows what to do when it's in a certain environment. So for example, your bedroom where you sleep at night. When you lay down in bed, yes, your bed is comfortable. Yes, you got the blankets, you got the covers, but you start to feel like, okay, I need to go to sleep. Like it's now bedtime. It's now time for me to go to bed. And part of that is because this is where you always go to sleep. This is your environment for sleeping. Same thing with the kitchen. If you hang out in the kitchen all day, what you'll find is you're going to do a lot of snacking. You're going to investigate the pantry and the fridge. And this is like, you're just going to get into like snack mode because like that's what you do. You eat in the kitchen. Or like the basketball gym. When I go to the basketball gym, like I get this inkling of like I need to get in the zone and play some basketball. You get the picture. Your environment kind of dictates, your body knows and picks up on, okay, this is where I do this thing. And the point of this is my psychology teacher taught us you can do that with anything. You can condition yourself to enter these environments and get into these zones and get into these modes and to never mix and match these things. So he was a big proponent of not doing your homework in your room. So I had a room in college, a dorm room, and I had a desk, but this is also where we did our pre-gaming for partying. This is also where I showered, and this is also where I got dressed, and this is also where we watched TV and watched football, and this is also where we would eat snacks and things like that. And then I'd also try to do homework right there. Very distracting. Body was not in the zone and ready to go. So I ended up finding a area that was like a siloed off office that was on the 5th floor of the psychology building. It was a computer lab. You could get in with your badge, and I would go there to do my homework. And whether it was snowing outside, it was about a 10-minute walk from my dorms. Whether it was snowing outside, whether there was a bunch of stuff going on, I just religiously committed to always going to this 5th floor in this computer lab that nobody really knew about. No one really went into. It had a row of computers all over the place, but it was just me in there. And it was always just me. And I would throw my headphones in and I would just sit down and get in the zone. And then over enough time of doing that, every time I entered that computer lab, my body and my mind just knew it was time to focus on homework. So I would just go there constantly, consistently. And, my grades shot up after that point. And I don't want to say it was only because I found my little homework nook, but that was a big, big changer for me because it allowed me to be way more consistent with school, way less distracted, and way more focused on things that I knew I needed to get done. So it's a beautiful story of consistency, and it allows you to also find those environments and those areas in which you can do those things. Last, I'll leave you with is one of my favorite sayings, and I hope someone says this to you one day because it is the most empowering feeling in the world. At least it is for me. And that saying is, must be nice. When someone tells you, must be nice, you have X, Y, and Z. Or it must be nice that you get to do X, Y, and Z. Or it must be nice that you got this thing that they want that they can't have. That fires me up more than anything because I know whatever they are saying must be nice, that X, Y, and Z. I know that it took so much consistency and consistent work to get that thing. And it's happened to me a lot in my life where someone says, must be nice. Man, you're so lucky. And I do feel lucky in a lot of aspects in life, but I do feel like it is very nice. And I do feel, and this is the competitor in me, that like, yeah, it is nice. And it's nice because I know that you can't have it. Because you can't have it because you're going to get too bored. You can't have it because you deal with too many distractions. You can't have it because you compare yourself way too much. You're comparing yourself to me right now. You can't have it because you're going to get tired and I'm not. And you can't have it because you want easy, fast, and cheap. And I want hard, slow, and expensive because I know that leads to the thing that must be nice that you don't have that you want. So that's a competitor in me. Just remember that consistency will get you out of complacency, and then you're going to have everybody in your world tell you, man, must be nice that you have this thing. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.